The following is a recorded program of an actual stroke support group. The comments expressed are the personal opinions of the participants and not necessarily the opinions of the producers, sponsors, or the broadcasters of this show. This program is not to be used as a way to diagnose or treat any medical condition that you may have. Please consult your doctor or healthcare professional before making any changes to your current medical routine.
Stroke.
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 It comes out of the blue, sometimes without warning.
But those who survive it
should never lose hope.
A stroke can be life-changing.
But it is also
a new beginning.
Because for all survivors, there is still a beautiful life after stroke.
Hey everybody, welcome to Life After Stroke. I'm Christopher Ewing. Today we are broadcasting from Providence St. Medical Center in Burbank, California. And our guest today is Maria Fisk. She's a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, and long-standing Providence St. Medical Center caregiver and healthcare professional. Say that 3 times fast. And she is just awesome.
Hello, good morning everybody. Nice to meet you.
It is just so cool that you're here today. We also have our other very, very special guest who we just love. We just love you, Kathy. Kathy Cole. She is the author of Kick-Ass Kind of Girl, a memoir of life, love, and caregiving. And she is here with us later in the show with a very special little announcement we're going to make regarding Kathy and all kinds of stuff. It's very cool. And in the meantime, I'm going to say hi to the gang. We got the gang here. Hey, you guys, what's going on? Since it's been a while, why don't we kind of go around the horn and introduce ourselves to listeners and stuff like that. And we'll start with our newest member. This is Bernie. Hey, Bernie. So, Bernie, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody who's listening and all that kind of good stuff.
Hi, I'm Bernie, and I'm just representing my wife. I didn't get any stroke, but, I'm trying to stay with her like that to get it well like that one. Then,
Right. For those of you who were listening last week, Bernie came in the midst of our show. One of the nurses brought him in because they knew that we were having our stroke support group, and Bernie sat down and told us about his wife Norma and that she had just had a stroke maybe 9 or 10 days before, and today, before we went on the air, Bernie was telling us that she's doing much better, and so we're really glad to hear that, Bernie.
Good, better
That's
right
great,
now,
Bernie. That's great.
Open her eyes and moving her mouth like that one, but nothing much sound she is making like that one there,
Yeah, well, you know what? We'll take progress and healing any way we can get it, so I'm really glad to hear she's doing better. Next to Bernie, we've got Mr. Dave.
Hello, my name's Dave. I had a massive right frontal stroke, and I'm in my second year of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And you are the epitome of recovery, as we often talk about. It is amazing, your recovery. You are the epitome of recovery, man, and I'm so happy. And you always talk about the twins. The twins are turning 8 soon.
Twins are turning 8.
And they're getting ready for a birthday party and all that kind of stuff, so that's awesome, and we're really glad to hear about that. Next to Dave is Dr. Parker.
Hi, I'm Bob, and I've had a stroke 9 years ago. 2 strokes, actually.
Right, and this just within the same day or a couple days apart?
No, just in the same day. 1 in the morning and 1 at night.
Right. Dr. Parker is an author and educator, and he's just another one of those who we just absolutely love around here. He's written several books. You can find links to the books on the strokechannel.tv website. He wrote one of the books on healing. What is it? The Healing 2 Strokes?
I am on my way to healing 2 strokes and a recovery.
That's right.
On Amazon.
That's right. And it's awesome. And next to you is Kathy Cole, another author. All these authors here. My goodness, you guys are making me going to finish my book. I've got a half-finished book, and you guys are kind of making me have to finish mine now.
Hi, I'm Kathy, and I became involved with strokes because my husband had a stroke that affected his brain stem and left him a quadriplegic on a respirator for 6.5 years. But we had a life. We really had a life.
Absolutely. And the amazing thing about that is that, they had told you that it was only 24 hours that they had given him to live, and he lived for 6.5 years. And I just think it's your story is just so amazing. And I'm so glad that you wrote a book about it. I mean, you almost had to write a book about it.
Thank you.
So we're going to be chatting with Kathy later. And next to Kathy is our featured guest, Maria Fisk, who is our dietitian. Maria, why don't you brag a little bit? Tell everyone a little bit about your background and all that kind of good stuff.
Why, sure. I've been here at St. Joe's, and I normally see people, outpatients, on an individual basis. I love what I do, which I'm really lucky. I mean, I don't think a lot of people can say that they love their jobs like I do, but I do. And it's a daily basis dealing with people just like you and the community. And I think my favorite thing is, and Chris, you'll get a kick out of this, is I get patients that come to me and say, they look at me with this little evil eye. You're going to tell me to restrict my favorite things, and you're going to tell me to go on this diet. But actually, what I really find the most challenging is to take the preconceptions that so many people have from Dr. Google, you know what I mean? And negotiate with them and sit down and say, hey, what is your problem? What can we do to do better? And let's write down some goals. So next time you see me, let's work on some of these things. Just kind of taking that big boulder and taking chips out of it so it isn't so overwhelming.
Now, we hear about how important diet is pre-stroke, but certainly everybody here at the table, not everybody obviously, but several of us here at the table and many people listening are kind of post-stroke. How important is diet post-stroke?
Whether it's pre or post, your nutrition is, you can do more with healthy nutrition, I'm going to tell you, than some medications can do for you. You can't, there's some things that you can do with your exercise, your stress reduction, going back to your personal life. What can you all do personally to improve? And probably the easiest thing to say is, can we just get away from that brown and white, the big old steaks and the big old mashed potato? Everybody's wincing at the table. Just reduce them. Think color. Get some pink, blue, red, purple in your meal plan. Fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables, have shown to reduce your blood pressure. Reducing your blood pressure is a super key in keeping that blood pressure under control. Also, looking at maybe fish or chicken or white meats, something that's a little more healthy to replace the ribs and steaks, that kind of a thing. It's not never, but it's just working with how you can improve. Maybe it'll never be perfection, but better than where you were.
All right, everybody. Well, you see where this show's going today. I liked Maria when she walked in. I don't know how I feel about her when she walks out of here, because, she's chipping away at my whole meal for the whole day. I'm just like, well, okay, well, there goes lunch. Said, I guess dinner's out now, too. All right, well, throughout the show here, we're going to talk with Maria, and she's going to kind of kick us all in the healthy tail and get us all on track and make sure that, we're doing right with our diets and things like that. So everybody sit tight, and we'll be right back. Life After Stroke is part of the iHeartRadio Podcast Network. Search and follow Life After Stroke on iHeartRadio or subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so that you never miss an episode. Also, be sure to download the new strokechannel.tv app, available free from Google Play or the iTunes App Store. Hey everybody, welcome back to Life After Stroke. I'm Christopher Ewing. Today we are speaking with Maria Fisk. She is a dietitian here at Providence St. Joseph's Medical Center. And, one of the questions that I have is that it seems like we are more concerned with weight loss when it comes to watching our diet than we are really concerned about the health of our bodies when it comes to diet. Does that seem like a fair statement? Or?
Well, yes. There's a lot of crazy diets out there, and it's about weight loss. Sure, they're successful, but you can lose weight eating a lot of fat and a lot of red meats. And what does that do to your cholesterol? I have seen clients of mine that have lost weight doing something kind of weird, but then their cholesterol will be high or their blood sugars will be high. So it's about using a balance.
And they might be okay with it just because they look good in the mirror, but meanwhile on the inside of their bodies.
And their cholesterols are going up. And what's that doing to your other risk factors? So we like to take a look at balancing out meals, the 5 food groups. It's so simple, DASH diet, Mediterranean, that kind of a thing. We're using that approach. You hear so much about diets out there.
Yeah, now that's the other thing. You hear about the Atkins diet, the Mediterranean diet, the this diet, that diet. Is there a stroke diet?
Well, basically not per se labeled as a stroke diet, but going to the Heart Association, there's definitely some guidelines. And
what does that menu look like?
Okay. The menu, or for the day, it would be 6 to 8 servings of grains, whole grains, 4 to 5 servings of vegetables, 4 to 5 servings of fruits, 2 to 3 servings of low-fat dairy products, 6 ounces of lean meat for the day, and nuts 4 to 5 times a week, and healthy oils 2 to 3 servings for the day, and limiting the sweets. That's the basic overview of a DASH dietary approach, is to stop hypertension, which is a risk factor for stroke.
Now, let me ask you this. Are there any foods that we need to be especially concerned about post-stroke that maybe we didn't need to be as concerned about pre-stroke?
Generally speaking, I like to look at some of the fast foods and the chippers, the chips and the sweets. Chris.
Is it getting hot in here to anybody else?
Chris, remember, come back.
Oh, Lord.
Hey, we can, it's just taking a look at that, taking a look at some of these bigger products, because the minute it's in a wrapper, the minute it's kind of at a restaurant, you're kind of maybe having, like, I'd rather not see what the numbers are. You won't get numbers on some of these foods, and some of these numbers translate to your numbers, your cholesterol levels, perhaps your weight, perhaps your blood pressure. So it's not coming in and trying to reach that 100%. But at least start at 10% and work up.
Now, that's another interesting thing, too, is that when you see these numbers and all that other kind of stuff, is there any kind of conversion that we as stroke survivors should kind of do a plus minus to with some of those numbers? Like, are those numbers more geared to somebody who has an overall, quote-unquote, healthy body, or, never had a stroke kind of body and things like that?
I tell you what, since the Heart Association is such a good tool, if you go there to that website, they have guidelines for nutrition, and they're looking at, a little bit of the weight loss, some of the fats for the different kind of strokes that are out there, and the sodium, and looking at the label, looking at the different numbers, and they are very, very helpful that way. And it's looking at altogether weight loss, calories, the saturated fats, the sodium are the primary things in those food numbers. And it's just so not sexy to talk about food numbers. People just kind of go, But the minute you have an issue, the minute you have a problem, looking at those numbers relate to your numbers. Specifically sodium, maybe. A bowl of soup, maybe people didn't know. A bowl of regular soup is about 2,000 milligrams of sodium. That's how much sodium you should be having for the day. So maybe there's other soups, there's other products that you can get. There's always a substitute for what you like. There's always a better way of doing things with your personal preferences. There's a way to step back a little bit and take a look.
If I never had to be concerned about my diet pre-stroke, do I especially now need to be concerned about it because of the stroke?
Let's get back to that point, of course. So it's the pre and the post, of course, because whatever got you into the stroke the first time around is probably still there. So whether it was high blood pressure, some of your eating habits, some of your stress after the stroke, it's probably even more important because, you're now a little more vulnerable. You've got some genetic predisposition, a family trait that you have an alertness. Okay, this is in my family. So now that I've had the problem, I need to be even more careful. So absolutely, your lifestyle is now more important than ever before. Sure. Oh, absolutely. To the second time, you want to prevent the second one.
Right.
Yeah. It's a disease prevention kind of a thing. Mm-hmm.
Now, for those who are on certain medications,
Yes.
I understand that there's certain foods that kind of don't play nicely with some of those meds. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay. There's been so much controversy about the grapefruit interactions. I don't know if you heard about that. There's little symbols or little notes on your medications not to use grapefruit. Oh, that's a hard decision. Ask your pharmacist, because at one time we were told do not eat grapefruit whatsoever with any of your blood pressure medicines, antidepressants, or lower cholesterol medications. And then there's also blood thinners, things like Coumadin. And Coumadin is not being used as much. A lot of the blood thinners, the newer generation blood thinners don't, we don't, in strokes and that kind of a thing, or heart disease, Coumadin is not used as much. So the high vitamin K foods, the leafy greens, would have been cut back pretty much strictly that are high in vitamin K, because that interacts with Coumadin. But it's not used that much anymore. Not as much.
Wow, that's really interesting. Now, obviously, foods don't really have like kind of a magic potion to it or anything like that, but are there any foods that would kind of lend itself to helping us prevent another stroke?
Yes, and the research has found. Okay, here's generally the research. If you can keep that blood pressure down, that is a super important thing in stroke prevention. Is keeping that blood pressure under, let's say, top number 130, systolic, diastolic under 80 is the typical goal. Your vegetables and your fruits. Just by eating more fruits and vegetables, they have found that people can lower their blood pressure several points. Also watching the salty foods. Look at you looking at me.
And that's what's so deceiving too, because there's so many things that have salt that's like embedded in there, like hidden in there. You don't even know it's there, Well, the best way is to go ahead and look at the food guide label, but when you go to a restaurant or you're hanging out at a fast food place, you don't necessarily have the sodium content in a meal. Sure.
And that's where it's hidden. And you can't always tell by taste. You can't necessarily, who would think that some cheeses have as much salt as ham?
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And ham tastes salty, but cheeses don't.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too. You almost have to do your math, because, you look at something and say, oh, it's only got, a little bit of milligrams of okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by the end of the meal, once it's all on the plate,
exactly.
You're looking at a plate full of salt.
Yeah. And adding it up. So it's best to try to get whole foods, not things that don't have a lot of sauces on them, steamed, grilled, broiled, that kind of a thing at a restaurant, dressings on the side, or vinegar and oil.
Now, that's another thing, too. You hear about the difference between frying versus grilling. Is there that big of a difference between the preparation of the two?
Definitely. Generally, frying to most restaurants means that the food is swimming in the fat. It's deep fried. Whereas grilling, they might put some oil or even butter or something like that. You can ask for a better oil, and it's grilled, so the fat will drip down through the grill. So it's not being absorbed like a sponge. Most restaurants, when you're deep frying, are frying the food, in a lot of oil. And maybe not the best oil. I don't think restaurants are using olive oil because it's very expensive and it doesn't fry well. It doesn't deep fry well. So... they're not using the best oil for your cholesterol levels.
Interesting. Earlier you had made a comment about something was as if you took a bunch of packages of sugar and just poured it in your face.
Oh, you were listening to to the conversation with your mom.
My mother a private consultation over here, and Lord knows she needs it. So I'm going to quiz her later and I'm going to tell on her too if she doesn't keep all the recommendations that you gave her.
We negotiated a few things.
Did you? Okay,
yes, we did.
Good luck with that. All right.
Well, let's see. We tried.
Right. But what was that? Because it sounded like it was a really interesting.
It's very, very interesting. Coca-Cola, you don't realize, but a 12-ounce can of Coke has about 8 spoons of sugar in it. And it's as if you would take 8 packets, the little restaurant packets of sugar that you get, and put them in your mouth at one time.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I used to have a little sugar, the sugar packets attached to a sugary drink. And when I would show the kids in my office, they would go, ooh. I said, but that's what you do when you're drinking a Coke. You're putting that much sugar into your system at once.
And isn't it interesting how it's so camouflaged?
Yes.
You
would never know
You
that Coke
never know.
was that sweet
Absolutely.
because we've gotten so accustomed to that
Sure.
sweet, sweet taste.
Sure.
And you know what? The same goes for salt. It's a habit. How you've become accustomed, it becomes, your tongue gets that, I want that salty taste.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris, when you start cutting back on salt, you'll find that some of those salty things that you used to eat, it's like, oh my gosh. It's like,
You are so true now. And
Yeah.
to my own defense, I do not use salt and really haven't for a number of years. My stroke, they say just may have been a little faulty blood vessel in my brain that just exploded.
Different
because
kind of a
my
thing.
blood pressure was, borderline like 140/80 kind of thing. And when my cardiologist heard that I had my stroke, they were like, man, we were shocked you had your stroke because we got guys that walk in here that should be dead and they haven't had a stroke yet. So, they don't necessarily think that my personal stroke was brought on by, high blood pressure or anything like that. But it's interesting in that so many of these foods will kind of lend itself to just inching it up more and more, and you don't even know that it's happening.
Right.
Because you think, well, I'm just eating a little of this or a little of that, or I didn't have so much. But by the end of the day, if you were to really do the math,
Yes.
you've had a lot.
Most Americans probably get between 4,000 to 6,000 milligrams of sodium on a daily basis.
Oh my gosh, and that's
That's
double
a
and triple.
lot.
That is a lot.
That's a lot.
And one thing that you did say, which is so true, because I cut out salt years ago, and it's funny how your palate will change because I used to just really out of habit. Just you sit down, you're having a meal. Okay, you got to put salt and pepper on it, even though you haven't tasted it. You don't even know anything about it. And then when I started to realize, okay, well that's kind of silly. So then when I stopped using salt, I almost could pick out a grain of salt in something now because I'm just so. Like, oh, this is too salty, where somebody else might be just throwing salt on it. But it's interesting, and this is my point, how your whole taste buds and your palate will change just by cutting something out. And you won't even realize after a while, like, wow, you know what? I'm not using so much salt anymore, and I don't miss it. I don't miss it. And I really don't miss it, and it's just been years. And so it's interesting how you made that point that your taste will change if you just give it some time.
Just give it some time. It takes, because, remember, you've kind of had a lifelong habit.
Sure.
So to turn this around, it takes a lot of dedication and it takes a lot of willpower to do that because, we have a love affair with food. We do. I don't deny it. So that's amazing that you were able to do that one change. Okay, so there you go. And it was probably hard.
Oh, it was very hard.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
it's interesting how it wasn't hard for very long.
Once you got used to it.
Yeah. Because then, like I said, you don't miss it.
Right.
Now, I will be the first to sit here and admit, though, I am not about to walk on no water. I got my sins and bad habits like the next guy, and it is a sweet tooth sometimes that will not quit. And I'm talking 9, 10 o'clock at night. That ice cream. Ooh, my goodness. My weakness is Haagen-Dazs vanilla bean ice cream.
Oh, dear.
And I like the good stuff.
I know.
You
Yeah,
can't can't be the cheap kind.
Hey, listen, we all love it. Don't make any mistakes. We all love it. Yeah.
So, how in the world do you put that genie back in the bottle?
Okay. Use the same technique that you did with the salt.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, I know, Chris. Come back here. Don't fall off the chair now. Come on.
A man can't give everything away. I mean, my goodness.
We're just
expect everything.
Okay, so maybe you can start with less of.
How about this? Are there any cheaters? Are there anything? Yeah, but yogurt. I don't know.
I know what he's saying. He's
give me a pacifier. Give me
something.
Yeah, and the something can't be. Well, just do it every other day. I have no discipline. I have zero discipline when it comes to that. It's also not. We'll just take a smaller portion. No, there is no smaller portion with me because it's like, okay, I can't stop.
Okay, so what was the thought process in your head when you got away from salt? What was that trigger that did it for you?
Hearing that it wasn't good for you. And you could sit here and tell me that sugar isn't good for me, and
But that won't do it.
I see Bugs Bunny. I mean, I just see puppy dogs in flowers. I mean, I don't see anything bad, and I know that it's probably just as bad. I mean, I don't even want to say, is sugar any worse than salt in excess?
Well, okay. Now here's the thing. Sugar, because it's added to so much food. Sugar per se, because there's sugar in milk, there's sugar in fruit. There's natural sugars everywhere, but in our American diet, they put sugar in ketchups, and it's just kind of like salt. It gets to be this acquired taste because it sells well.
Yeah.
But because there's so much added there, it's a matter of our taste buds. But getting back to the ice cream, let's just say you have a carton of Haagen-Dazs every single day. Okay,
I could knock a pint out in a heartbeat.
Easy.
Absolutely.
Oh, easy.
One sitting.
I remember. I shouldn't even say.
Come on now. Come on now.
Okay. Do I have to
Yes,
confess?
you do.
All right.
Yes.
That young college kid. I've been known to do the same. Okay. Until I figured out my cholesterol high, and I need to do something about it. So maybe instead of doing a Haagen-Dazs pint every single day, do 3 pints for the week, and then just have it still, but just cut it back.
See, I think it's kind of like, well, it's 9 or 10 o'clock. It's that nighttime, sweet tooth habit time, So I think I would have a harder time telling it, no, it's not your day today to feel that. Is there something else that I can reach to, like an ice, like an Italian ice?
Oh, well, see, I didn't. You told me you didn't want to go there. I was just trying to work on getting you off the Haagen-Dazs and then on to something else.
Yeah, well,
you did tell me that, but okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's some amazing frozen desserts out there that we just love. Now, I'm very open to things like there's if you go to Sprouts or Whole Foods, and I don't necessarily want to promote products, or do you mind if I mention product names? Okay, so Halo Top and Arctic Freeze, those are some of, Enlighten, those are some of the products out there you might find really as a nice substitute, and so much lower in your carbs and your sugars and your fats and your calories. You might want to give it a try.
Now, since we're on a personal note here, and then we'll get back to more broad-based, because not everybody's weird like me. I am allergic to virtually everything. And when I say everything, I'm allergic to peanuts. I'm allergic to chocolate. Never had a candy bar in my life. Okay. I'm allergic to seafood. Some citrus fruits like oranges and grapefruits, some things that have a lot of high citrus in it will send me through the roof, breakout and all kinds of stuff like that. I say that to say that a lot of these recommendations that I have read about that would be good alternatives are things that I couldn't eat.
Because they're made in a factory with,
Well, not even that. It's just that I'm allergic to them.
Right.
So, I mean, if the stroke didn't kill me, a peanut allergy will, obviously. Yeah. Where they say, like, nuts are good in place of this, and, fish is good instead of that, and things like that. So, I'm a little bit more confined than I think the average listener is in that respect. But just kind of overall, maybe what we can do, we'll take a break.
Sure.
But when we come back, what I'd like to do is maybe you could put together a really good menu for us, in the sense of, for breakfast, maybe something along these lines, lunch along these lines, dinner along these lines, and just kind of give us an idea as to some of the things that we should really stay away from. And in the midst of staying away from those things, here are some alternatives that could nicely replace it.
Okay, so just a meal plan, because you're talking about a snack items you're talking about. So let's talk about a daily meal plan that's a little different.
Okay.
Sure,
All
absolutely.
Right, cool. Everybody, I'm trying here, you guys. I'm trying to I'm trying to get permission to be able for all of us to cheat a little bit, and Maria to give us a little bit of a break here.
Hey, a little bit of break here and there, that's fine. Yeah, we can do it. But on a daily basis, we want to try to be a little
better. And if you think I'm going to let her get off this show without sharing her little weakness, it ain't going to happen. We'll get her to confess.
We'll get you.
We'll get her to confess. All right, everybody sit tight. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Christopher Ewing, and you may have seen on the strokechannel.tv website that we have a very special episode coming up soon on the Life After Stroke radio show. In the coming weeks, we are going to devote an entire episode of Life After Stroke to answering any questions that you may have when it comes to healthcare coverage and health insurance, as well as any legal questions you may have in terms of powers of attorney, living wills, medical directives, and many other topics. We are going to have a lawyer here on the show, as well as professionals from the healthcare industry who, on a daily basis, deal with cutting through red tape when it comes to fighting for patients' benefits through their insurance company or filing complaints regarding better nursing home care and much more. So if you have any questions that you'd like to have answered during that episode, just go to www.thestrokechannel.tv and let us know. You can even ask your questions yourself right on the air from the audience if you live in the Burbank area, or you can ask your questions over the phone. You can even submit your questions online at thestrokechannel.tv, and we will ask the professionals your question on your behalf. Either way, this is going to be a very helpful and informative episode. So again, just go to www.thestrokechannel.tv to find out how your questions can be answered on this very important upcoming episode of Life After Stroke. Welcome back to Life After Stroke. I'm Christopher Ewing, and Kelly, our PR person here at the hospital, just brought up an awesome comment. And, there are so many stroke survivors, myself included, that just find it easier to prepare a meal by taking it out of the box and clipping the little corner so that it vents and sticking it in the microwave for 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever the box says. Because it's easier for us, maybe we're still paralyzed on one side, certainly weak on one side like myself, and it's just easier to do that.
What's out there?
Yeah. I mean, because you can easily go through Walmart or, Kroger or wherever you guys shop at, wherever you're at, and just see just refrigerator and freezer after another of all these great meals, all these pretty pictures, and it all looks great. But you look at those packages and those numbers are crazy, so
they are.
What do you do? Are you better off to stay away from the prepackaged things and just trying to do your best? Maybe get somebody to come into the house and help you cook and prepare it.
There's
naturally?
Several options there. I think probably one of the worst options is just heading off to the restaurant. Or having somebody drive you there and just go for it. Because I'm going to tell you, a restaurant meal, which we were talking about, hidden sodium, is probably at least 2,000 milligrams while you're sitting right then and there. You don't have that number in front of your face. So people figure when they look at a frozen meal, let's say like the healthy choices, the lean cuisines, the frozen meals, there's an array of them in the grocery store. They're in the freezer section. And they pick it up and they go, 500 milligrams of sodium, 700 milligrams of sodium. Well, that's still better than
what is that number? Is there a number that we should really be fearful of and don't even? Because it's going to be hard to find some meals that have these low enough sodium numbers. I mean, I've tried, but I look at the ones that maybe say 400, 500, 600, and it's like, well, at least they're not 1,200 like the other package said.
There you go.
But is that even still ridiculously too high?
No. Okay, now, Heart Association guidelines run, if you really want to keep the blood pressure down, 1,500 milligrams of sodium for the day. So that's pretty tight. But even taking it down to 2,000 for the day, not one meal, but for the whole day, is really remarkable. So certainly, rather than a restaurant where your whole meal is going to probably be that easily, a frozen meal with, maybe you can get one of the salads that have been pre-washed and pre-bagged and kind of, be mindful of the salt in the salad dressing, and then some yogurt or some fruit or something down the road as a snack makes a really nice balanced meal. What's wrong with that?
No, nothing. But, like Kelly said, it's just easier for a stroke survivor to just, when they go to the store, grab some of these little $2 meals that, look appealing or an appetizing, and it's simple too. That's great,
But you can do that with what I'm talking about. They go on sale, There are these frozen meals that you can pop in your microwave or your little toaster oven or whatever, and they're workable.
Right.
They are workable.
Are there some, and I hate to call out some brands, but I mean, you know what? This is life and death here. Are there some brands that are just easier and safer for us to even think about consuming versus others?
Well, I just mentioned some brands.
Yeah, what the heck, yeah.
Okay. I just the Healthy Choice, the Lean
This is
Cuisines,
your own opinion here, as we say.
the steamers. I don't want to call out any names. I don't have stock in these products. And the main thing is to look at the sodium. Okay, let's try to keep these products because some you might be able to find at Sprouts, at Trader Joe's, at Whole Foods. These are Ralph's and Vons. If you're looking at a frozen meal, try to get things that are under 500 calories and under 500 milligrams of sodium. That usually, and then, I don't want to get down the line of the fat, but just for simplified purposes, that's probably a good place to look. Okay.
500 calories and 500 milligrams of sodium.
That's kind of easy. 500, 500.
Right.
In your frozen meals. Let's just start there. Okay, because there's saturated fats, so we can go down the line of carbs and all that kind of thing. But let's at least start there.
Now, if you had to give a little in one of those categories or another, is it better to give in the caloric number or the sodium number?
I would say, in terms of lowering blood pressure, probably give a little in the calorie. Okay. Be a little more tight on the sodium because we get so much salt everywhere. Calories we can kind of at the end of the day make up for it, but that sodium is really everywhere. It's quite prevalent.
Right.
And it's hidden, just like you're saying. It's hidden.
Sure. It's you don't even realize, don't even know it's there.
Yeah.
So give us kind of a menu that we can kind of work from for breakfast. What would be something that should absolutely not be on our breakfast menu at all in any kind of way?
Well, you're saying kind of a black and white thing and never. Well, probably your typical eggs, hash browns, bacon. Now, Christopher.
Okay, did I just eat? Did I just eat it all over the past month? My gosh.
Okay. So let's maybe take a look at taking some scrambled eggs and some vegetables and doing. Now this is going to take work. Okay, because so you're probably eating those. You're probably eating those at a restaurant.
We really got to stop for a second. Now, hang on.
Yeah.
Breakfast is my meal. Okay, if I don't eat another meal in the course of a day, if you see me any day, you know that I ate breakfast. That's my meal.
Are you eating these at home or are you eating?
I'm eating it at home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I eat at home.
Okay, that's a good start.
And gosh, I don't even want to tell you.
Come fast.
Okay. 2 scrambled eggs.
Okay.
Jumbo or large.
Okay.
Oh gosh. Okay. 5 strips of bacon. Pre-cooked Hormel, I think it is, or something, whatever comes in like the 72 strip pack from Costco. I'm like totally calling all these places, but I love it. It's good. I'll do some toaster waffles. Gosh, I'm feeling my own guilt right now. Okay, I'm like kicking my own self in the tail. I see you looking at me from across the table. You're like, okay, dude, that's why you had a stroke. Yeah.
I'm looking at you as my mind is going. Okay, so how can we do better? How can we do better?
And let me multiply that times 6 days.
Yeah.
That's like literally my go-to meal every single day. Like, Dave talks about spinach and egg whites that he eats every day.
Cool.
I am completely the opposite.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So, going back, let's just take it and make it 50% better. Can we do that?
Sure, we can try.
Okay,
sure.
let's work on this, Christopher. Okay. So, you've got the eggs. All right. Okay, cool. Now the strips of bacon.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, who's the most guilty in that whole meal? Which is the one that's got to get out of there?
I think the 5 strips of bacon.
The 5 strips?
On a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay. Less strips, like 0 strips, or can I go down to 3? Or
they're all salty.
They're all salty.
Okay, but in consideration, because let's talk about a little less calories possibly. So maybe some, and this is all processed meat. So Canadian bacon, or maybe you might want to look at some of the...
Is turkey a big deal?
I was just going to say, some of the turkey cold cut type of things, bacon substitutes, Morningstar, vegetarian...
Is turkey meat that much better than some of the other meats?
Well, I tell you what it is. In some of these turkey preparations, they're a lot lower in fat and calories. Oh, they're salty.
Okay.
Oh, see, they're still
Yeah,
salty. They're still salty. So those strips of bacon, what you've got there is a lot of grease. I mean, you cook that bacon, it's just cooking grease. So turkey, beef, or Canadian bacon is a better alternative.
Canadian bacon.
Okay, now I'm stepping you down. I'm not getting to perfection, but I'm stepping
Sure.
you down.
I detect two things here. Calories is in one of
Yes.
its own little columns and tracks,
Yes.
and sodium is in it.
Is
its
it in
other.
another, right?
And
I'm
neither-
also thinking about fats. I'm not sure about your cholesterol.
Yeah. Okay. My
We-
cholesterol has been good.
Okay, cool.
I've heard that.
Okay.
But now, when you were talking about Canadian bacon, is Canadian bacon that much more healthy than regular good old?
Usually Canadian bacon is 1 gram of fat, where a strip of bacon is usually about 5 to 8 grams of fat per strip. So that's significant.
But see, and that's interesting. You say it's
Calories.
significant because you're talking about only the difference of 3 or 4 grams.
Yeah, but it really translates much more so in calories.
Okay. Just those little numbers, just the
Adds-
little difference
yeah, I know.
of 5 digits.
Yes, I got that head for
can
numbers.
Really,
Yeah,
it's really a big difference.
It's
huh?
a big difference, right. The 5 strips of bacon versus maybe 2 strips of Canadian bacon might be an option.
But now, don't expect the sodium level in the Canadian bacon to be too unlike
Like the regular bacon.
Okay.
Because there's still sodium.
So then, I guess I go back to what should we, as stroke survivors, be more concerned about? The overall caloric intake,
Or
the
sodium. The sodium, because you can
Okay.
make up the calories a little bit later by eating less of something. But in this instance, I'm trying to also look at calories. Because I've got all these numbers floating around in my head, and so I'm also looking at calories and sodium and fats and that kind of a thing. So giving you that option.
And that's another interesting point that you bring up too, Maria. Are the things that we eat, they've got its own little caloric number and its own sodium number, but then there's the stuff we have to put on it in order to make it taste better and gooder. You know what I mean? Like the dressings and the condiments and all of that you don't see. What would a like ketchup and mustard, let's say. What is the sodium in like enough ketchup to put on a hamburger to have it be tasty? What number would that be?
Well, I could be wrong because I don't have a bottle of ketchup in front of me right now. But some of those condiments, 2 tablespoons, which is just 2 dollops, can be like 200 milligrams of sodium.
Wow.
And I know the days when I used to put a half a bottle of ketchup on my French fries
the
because
fries
it was a
everything. Yes.
vehicle. I loved ketchup. So I think a lot of people still do that.
Sure.
So there you have French fries, and you're talking probably 1,500 milligrams if you put enough ketchup on there of sodium. Do you see how those little
It adds
additions?
up.
So
Absolutely.
when you were telling me about the toaster waffle, my head was automatically going into
But he puts butter and
yes, but he
syrup
puts
and-
what are the vehicles?
Sure.
It's a vehicle that adds for
And
other
I'm going to
things.
tell you, my butter's got to be the good salted butter. It can't be that, that stuff that tastes like car wax or something, I mean, it's got to be the good stuff right from the churn,
Exactly. So maybe looking at another type of bread, or if you get toaster waffle, maybe putting some crushed berries or applesauce on it with cinnamon. Applesauce with cinnamon. That's another way around it.
Last time I had applesauce was in intensive care when they were trying to see if I could eat.
Oh, so it
The
doesn't
swallow
bring.
test,
Yeah. Crushed berries.
Yeah, before I forget, I want to ask this question. Sodas. Is diet soda all that much better?
Here's the thing with sodas. The problem with sodas is the phosphorus, the artificial coloring, the artificial flavoring, and diet has all of that except without the sugar. And there's, also some studies that all that phosphorus is not great for the bones, possibly a problem for the kidneys. So could we maybe go to flavored waters?
Okay. There you go.
Like, they have so many of these new flavored waters
And
out
I'm going
there.
to call one out because they're sponsors of mine on my music show. Hint Water, everybody. Look
Hint.
it up.
I'll have to look it up. Okay.
Hint Water is the absolute best. And just shout out to Hint. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your water. It's awesome.
I'll take a look.
It's just plain awesome. There's no sugar. There's no preservatives. There's no nothing.
Just flavor.
If you look up the history of it, the woman who invented the company, Kara, shout out to you. She had her kids, and her kids had friends over, and every time they all came over to her house, she always had pitchers of water, and she'd put fruit in it. And one of the days, one of the moms called her and said, "Hey, what's that stuff you give my kid when she comes down to your house? Because she wants me to make it, and I don't know what she's talking about." And it's like, "Oh, it's just water with, I just throw some fruit in there, and it just gives it a hint of fruit flavor." And that's where she came up with the name. And now you can see it at Starbucks. I mean, it's all over the place. It's awesome. She's awesome. The company's awesome, and I love it. And so I need to go back to that. So I'll just call him. Have him send me some more water.
So I mean, there's so many alternatives, to that typical Coke. There really are, and the diet and all that, and trying to get our foods a little less with all these ingredients in them and try to get them a little more natural. I'm trying to take that breakfast of yours and carve it out a little bit.
I get it. And it's all a habit that we've fallen into too. We get into this rut and we just habitually have these go-tos. And if we just stop going to them after a while, we won't even remember.
You did it. You've done it with the salt.
Sure.
So that was a huge plus. So if you did it with that,
sure,
you can work on the Haagen-Dazs, work on some of these other things.
So I want to race through to lunch and dinner.
Sure.
So, and I don't mean to make all this about me. I mean, I'm willing to throw myself on the dietary altar and stuff like that.
What you're doing is very typical.
But I know there's so many listeners out here that typical. We're all in this together, and we do not want another stroke, and that's why I've been just excuse the pun, I've been dying to have you come in here, or someone like you to come in here and get us straightened out, because we got to do everything we can to keep to get off that radar of a potential of another stroke. So
sure.
Lunch, and again, you've talked about restaurants kind of being the places we need to be really concerned about going to and stuff like that.
Being very careful.
People that go to work, is it best for us to always pack our lunches with us rather than go out to lunch with the friends and the coworkers and stuff like that? Or
well, at least decrease the restaurant frequency. Or if you do go to a restaurant, just order some good things, some salads and steamed vegetables or grilled vegetables, or even sandwiches. People have such a terrible fear of sandwiches, but if you get the right kind of breads, you get the right kind of fillers for the sandwich. Sometimes lettuce, tomato, avocado on whole wheat bread is very nice. You can get some fresh turkey with it, that kind of a thing. So if you're ordering out, that's an alternative. Personally, I think it's great to bring your lunches. It saves people a heck of a lot of money.
Sure, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those right kind of things.
Yeah.
So you make yourself a sandwich for lunch.
Sure.
Meats that we would put in there, turkey versus chicken.
Sure. And trying to get some lower sodium, because some of those cold cuts are very salty.
Sure.
Okay, so maybe going to the counter where they have some freshly sliced meats, or buying some chicken breasts and cubing them up, or slicing them up for your sandwich, something easy like that.
Now, are the freshly cut ones going to have less of all the stuff we're trying to get rid of?
If you can find a behind-the-counter meat person, which has sliced turkeys or even lean roast beefs, that kind of a thing,
Okay.
usually those meats, ask them. Because I have seen counters that had regular meats without the salt. But yeah, the salt, I guess, it just kind of infiltrates everywhere. But that at least is an option.
Okay.
And for people who are not allergic to nut butters, peanut butters and or almond butters, always an alternative, for a sandwich. And just like I mentioned, maybe a vegetarian snack on a whole wheat bread, that kind of a thing. And having a side of fruit and a yogurt or a little bit of Swiss cheese, because that tends to be low sodium, putting that together in a meal plan.
No, I'm not a cottage cheese eater, but you made a comment about cottage cheese.
Oh, the guys just hate cottage cheese. What is it?
What is that? What is cottage cheese?
What is it about my male patients that just hate cottage cheese?
But
it's easy. It's easy to do.
But you said that the ingredients in it is
very salty.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, cheeses can be as salty as ham. I found a product over at, I don't want to really call out names again, but at Vaughn's, a low sodium cottage cheese that's low fat. I love it. So to me, that makes a great lunch with some fruit, with some tomatoes, and
What cheeses would be better? Because I do love my sliced cheese.
Okay, so you're basically your Swiss cheese.
Okay.
And again, look at cheeses. The less processed a cheese, so if you get the kind of processed cheeses, the natural ones tend to be a little bit better. Again, we're going back to Swiss cheese. And look at your numbers of sodium, because all products I'm not familiar with every single product out there, but there are cheeses that are, let's say, less than 200 milligrams of sodium per slice. That would be workable.
Wow.
Not 400.
That's a lot of salt in one slice.
Take a look at your cheeses.
Gee
They can be
whiz.
300.
Wow.
So if you can get it lower.
That's the kind of number that I see on these packages of a whole meal, for goodness sakes.
Well, those are usually 500.
I know, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
when you look at it,
Yeah.
it's like here's a whole meal
Yes.
versus one little slice of cheese.
Yes, sometimes a slice of cheese or several slices of a ham, depending on how thick those slices are, can be 300 to 400 milligrams of sodium. Shocking.
Wow.
Yeah, shocking.
So when you think you're really doing something by not having the burger, and instead you're having the sandwich with, turkey or beef or chicken, whatever it is, with some cheese and some bread and this, that, and the other, you're climbing on up there. By the time you add a slice of this and a slice of that and a slice of this, you might be close to that burger anyway.
Okay.
You won't have the grease.
Okay, so Chris, all right, I'm throwing it back at you. So you have... Basically, you could have the same amount of sodium.
Sure.
But what would be better in terms of the burger or the sandwich?
That's a good test, though. That's a good test. As you've said, given the caloric
and the fat
department and the fat department.
So you're better there.
Yeah.
So if you just kind of make a few smaller changes and get better meat products and work on that, you could also reduce the sodium in that lunch.
Now, again, with lunch, you can't have a sandwich unless you got chips.
Okay. They're chips, the small bags of chips are usually about 300 milligrams, the small.
So give me a go-to bag of chips that I can go to that we can go to that don't have a lot of sodium, or
less sodium.
You see baked, you see puffed, you see popped, you see all these. You see veggie chips now and all this other kind of stuff.
Okay, there are those chippers, I call them chippers, that tend to be a little less calories, a little less fat and salt than others. Some of the pop chips, veggie chips, bean chips, those kind of things. I don't want to give names specifically, but again, let's look at the numbers. Okay, for chips, for example, let's try to get a small bag, not the big bag, small bag. That's less than 140 calories. They're out there that are less than 200 milligrams of sodium. Okay. I mean, there are out there, but without going through a whole list of names, pick a store. Maybe go to Sprouts. Maybe go to Whole Foods. You might have a little more variety that way. You can get them at Vaughn's and Ralph's as well, but.
For everybody listening, Vaughn's and Ralph's. I think Ralph's is associated with Kroger. I know there's Krogers all over the country. Obviously, there's Whole Foods everywhere.
Again,
now,
I'm trying to be balanced here. I don't want to pick one retailer over another.
Sure.
Got to be careful. Yeah.
Huh.
So think about a better way of getting a lunch together, or maybe getting one of the frozen meals. And also, there's so many delivery meal systems out there. They're very expensive, though.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they're really expensive.
Okay.
But those are also an option of having somebody, prepare it.
When it comes to salads,
yes,
you had mentioned that some of the packaged salads, kind of have, some sodium to them, or
absolutely.
It just looks like just lettuce and
right
stuff.
Because. Okay, so if you get like the Southwestern salads, or if you get some of the Mexican type salads, take a look at that. Some of the stores have these little packages of pre-prepared salads. Look at those numbers, just like your frozen meal. Look at the package, and let's try to get that frozen meal under 500, the sodium under 500.
Got
okay,
it.
so just like a packaged meal.
Okay.
And
dressings,
your vinegar and oil always works.
Okay.
Vinegar and oil always works. Salad dressings, usually 2 tablespoons is like a ketchup. Is
like the little pack. 2 tablespoons.
Yeah, 2 tablespoons. Or hey, I got to tell you,
my horses eat that kind of stuff. Literally.
Okay. Well, maybe taking a little extra vinegar and watering it down, or taking a little lemon juice and watering it down.
I like balsamic.
Okay. Cool. All right.
I'm a balsamic vinaigrette.
All right.
kind of guy.
So
Or French. I could go either one.
Okay, so adding a little balsamic vinegar to the dressing will help spice it up a little bit, give it a little bit of an edge, but water down. You're not
Okay.
adding sodium.
Any particular dressings that we should stay away from? Blue cheese?
Well,
Just because it's got cheese in it. I don't know.
well, okay. The dressings per se, they're all pretty much salty. They all have fat in them. The vinegar and oil based dressings. The reason why they might be a little better is because they spread more. They spread around more. It takes a lot more effort to get the cheese dressing, the Thousand Island, the thicker dressings to spread. But your vinegar and oils just go everywhere.
Got it.
So you don't use as much.
You don't use as much.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So now
Alrighty,
dinner.
Dinner. Okay. So again, they have the meal preparations out there that are very high end. They've got the frozen meal, so try not to do more than one of a prepared 500 calorie, 500 sodium on once a day, or carefully twice a day, but once a day. And then again, you could do something like a salad, some steamed vegetables. Frozen vegetables. There's a whole lot of beautiful frozen vegetables out there. The green beans, the peas and carrots, that kind of a thing that are low sodium.
She says to the picky man who hates vegetables.
Oh, isn't there a vegetable you like?
I'm sorry. Did I leave that part out?
Somehow I didn't hear that. My buddies. Is there a vegetable that you would go with? Anything?
No,
not
really. I can tell you which
one.
ones I won't go to: asparagus and Brussels sprouts.
Oh yeah.
It'll never happen.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I bet you if I brought you over to my house, I could kind of convert you to some things because I steam them and grill them and.
I don't care what you do to an asparagus. You can't.
No.
You could make that into a spoon for vanilla ice cream, and I wouldn't use it.
I'm not talking asparagus. I'm talking about the ones you might go with, like a zucchini.
I don't know. I probably have nibbled on a zucchini at some point. I know when I go to my favorite restaurant, Benihana, it's my show. I'm going to tell you my favorites. When they chop up the stuff on the grill and stuff like that, I would probably give those a try. Onions, I don't know that I would eat too much. What's with this cauliflower stuff? Everybody's trying to convince people that cauliflower can substitute for spaghetti and mashed potatoes. And
the rice cauliflowers, the potato.
Well, come on now.
Yeah.
Are you buying into that?
The mashed cauliflowers and things like that. I personally love cauliflowers, so it's a substitute because it's white and it doesn't have as much starch. But by the time, okay, here you go again. If you're taking that cauliflower and you're putting it into a product, what else have they added to it
to convince you to convince you that it tastes like a potato
or a pizza crust?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, the cauliflower crust.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you're looking at that. So maybe a flour or a pizza crust that's already pre-made, and you can put your own lower sodium spaghetti sauce on it with some grated cheese that isn't so salty, and you could come up with something.
Is there that big of a difference between the baked potato or the mashed potato and the cauliflower that you've now turned into a potato-ish thing?
Probably, you could probably save yourself maybe if you made it.
Yes.
Okay. If you made it.
Yes.
If you
pound
made
for
it.
pound.
Okay. If you made it, let's say half a pound, because let's just say that's a pretty big serving. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that if you made it, just like you got the potato from the grocery store, now you've taken the cauliflower. How do you put a cauliflower?
You blend it, process it.
Okay.
You might want to have to put a little bit of oil in it or something
so
like that.
So you know everything that's in it. How
Yeah,
much
so
are you really saving?
You might be able to save 100 to 200 calories. It's
too much work.
Yeah, but it is. It's an alternative, and some people love it, and they go with it. So that is an alternative. See, there's so many alternatives out there. It's what you and that's just it. Working on your preferences and stepping them down. Stepping them down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So dinner-wise, and let's just think that dinner is what we make as opposed to doing the meal processed where they mail it to you or send it to you. Whatever.
So if you're making something at home,
making something at home.
Simple.
So grilled chicken.
Sure, grilled chicken, and you know what? Shellfish is so easy, like shrimp or scallops. People, some there's some allergies out there. Maybe some of the salmons and things like that, because you can, or even pork, the other white meat, you can treat those meats kind of like steaks. You can grill them on the barbecue. You can put a little bit of oil and, a little bit of onion, fluff it up a little bit, and do it in the pan. Okay. And some of the stores have frozen brown rice or, that are already made that you can pop up in the microwave. And then again, you can do some, I'm going to push the frozen, I'm just talking simple here. The frozen vegetables, the berries, you can maybe put with some yogurt, fluff it up into a smoothie, that kind of a thing. There's a lot of creative ways that you can put a meal together.
And you mentioned pork, the other white meat.
Yes.
Pork
or leaner.
Sure, pork versus chicken.
It's sometimes, depending on the cut, it's about the same. I always laughed as our chickens are getting fatter. Some of our pigs are getting skinnier. And if you get a piece of chicken and you take it and there's all this fat below the skin, and then you do a really nice pork tenderloin, there's hardly any fat compared to the chicken, just by looking
Is
at
that
it.
true?
Yeah. So that's an interesting concept, is going that way as well.
Okay.
And there's no salt in the pork. Pork does not have salt. Ham does. Fresh pork does not have salt added to
Pork
it.
does not have salt, but ham does.
Yes. Ham has salt added to it.
Because it's been processed.
It's been processed.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Yeah, so it's a process. Yeah.
All right. Well, now,
So-
I promised everybody. Come on now, fess up. What's your guilty go-to? You got to have one.
What's my guilty go-to that I just adore? Okay, that I tell my husband, don't bring it home or you're dead meat.
Yeah, right, yes.
Chocolate-covered nuts. And Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
There you go.
And Ben and Jerry's.
Okay.
And what else? Pizza.
Yeah, right.
And burgers and fries.
And we're kind of going back to the beginning of the show now. I guess I should ask you this then. What made you want to become a dietitian?
What made me want to become a dietitian? I guess because when I was going to school, there were so many problems with people with health. And I just thought, wow, what a great field to get into. Something, I was either teaching or dietitian. Those actually, or business marketing. I'm glad I didn't choose the business marketing. That would have been kind of dry. But, dealing, because I love dealing with people, and I thought that just was probably the best fit. And because both my parents were diabetic, I was helping them with their diabetes, especially my dad. Both of them had heart disease. Both of them had very high blood pressure at a very young age. So I guess living it.
And did you mention that they had a stroke too?
Oh, yes. Both my parents. Both of my parents had strokes and heart attacks. Both of them. And having that in the household, at an early age, and then I decided, hey, what a good fit this would be. So applying all that I saw in my life, and honestly, I had to apply it to myself.
Sure.
I can't sit here and tell you all, well, listen, maybe you ought to try this, and maybe we ought to exercise and not smoke and all that. If I'm doing it, so I kind of had to.
Yeah, well, and it's
do it.
Family history too. Certainly, if nothing else.
Hang it over your.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I mean, there needs to be an impetus. There needs to be something in your life that says, why am I doing this? Why do I want to do this? Sit down and write to yourself. Maybe write a list of, why do I want to make these changes? And just for now, pick 3 of the biggest things. Your one big one was salt. Congratulations. So maybe what are 2 other things that you can work on?
Yeah, the sweetness, the sweet stuff.
That's because I'm telling you, food becomes like an addiction. It is a love affair. Hardcore.
And I know you probably have all kinds of great literature and stuff that maybe we can link to on the strokechannel.tv website that people can click on and kind of get some reference to and stuff like that. And I definitely, you don't know this, but I want to rope you into our little team here so bad. I just love you already.
Well,
you
thank
are just
you.
so awesome. And I
And
just
so are
think
you
that
all,
there's so much
yeah.
you can lend this. Did anybody here have any questions or anything?
Before we wrap up.
What about peanut butter?
Peanut butter and nut butters are just a great source of filling you up. The fats are not too bad. I try to go with the natural sources, like the natural almond butters, the natural peanut butters, that kind of a thing. They're wonderful. They're a wonderful source. But just do keep in mind that they have a lot of calories, even though it's good fat. There's still, there's still quite a bit of calories. Great question.
Any other question? Kathy has a question.
Kathy has a question. Yeah. Hi, Kathy.
How about wine?
Now, hey, there's
Vodka tonics.
Okay, because I know you hear so much about the wine, especially when it comes to heart disease and so forth. And there are doctors out there that even say to their patients that don't drink wine, you need 2 glasses of wine every night. The patient's going, but I don't like wine. Okay. Several glasses of wine a week, probably not a bad idea. But watch the alcohol, has lots of calories. Too much raises your blood pressure. And the best kept secret out there, the more wine or alcohol, especially ladies drink, it increases your risk for breast cancer. So see, I've got to kind of look at you all, see what your histories are, you know, where you're going. And wine and alcohol isn't so hot for every single person out there. Depends on you, your medicines and all that. Good question. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. I don't have my right hand to deal with. So, in the morning, I have a vanilla shake, isolane, with walnuts and blueberries.
So, what kind of milk do you use, or do you use?
No, use almond milk.
Oh, okay, great, beautiful, love it.
Little
That's
bragger.
beautiful. Yeah,
You gotta
look at
brag.
it.
Little bragger.
There you go, Christopher.
Yeah, right. Gee, thanks, Dr. Parker.
For lunch, I have hummus.
Love it.
All kinds of hummus. I think I have in my fridge 3 or 4 or 5 kinds of hummus.
Beautiful. That's. There's a little bit of salt and salt. Is your blood pressure okay? Do you mind if I ask? Is it okay?
Yes. It's stabilized about 135 over 80.
It sounds like it's pretty well controlled. So your vegetables along with the hummus would be good. No vegetables.
I can't make vegetables with my hand.
They've got pre-sliced and okay. Oh, so what do you eat with the hummus?
I have a blue corn.
Oh, the chips. Yes. Those are not too bad. You probably get those at Trader Joe's. Is that where you get them? Because that's where I've seen them. You know what they have also? Just as an alternative, they've got the lower fat pita chips, which are also kind of an alternative. But the blue corn, okay, yeah, that works.
Okay.
Brush some of the salt off of them if they have salt. Some of the chips have salt, and what I do with crackers or things that have salt, I don't like salt per se, so I just kind of knock it off with my fingers.
I can knock it off. Well,
With your other hand.
With one hand, yes, I can, but not with the other hand.
Yeah. You can just kind of with one hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kathy's got a question.
How about Cheerios or shredded wheat or I don't know, with sliced bananas on it? Kind of the cereals, not the ones that already have sugar on them. But
Sure, the dry cereals are easy and absolutely workable. They do have some sodium in them. The shredded wheat are the lowest. Cheerios, I think, are about 150 milligrams the last time I looked for a small bowl. There is some sodium in some of these cereals, but shredded wheat, totally. Very low sodium. Oh, yeah, and higher fiber. Cheerio is a higher fiber cereal, about 3 grams of fiber, yeah.
So the takeaway that I'm leaving here with, really, especially like on what Dr. Parker was talking about, how, when you've got some paralysis and things like that, meal preparation can be kind of a chore.
It is.
Especially if you don't have a caregiver that can help you. So some of those, processed, prepared, frozen things is kind of an easy go-to for us. But you really stress just making sure you look at the labels.
Yeah, right.
So before I let you go, final thoughts.
Okay, final thoughts. When considering your nutrition, we're trying to do the best that we can with the tools that we have. and taking a look at maybe some of the biggest problems and then stepping down and I think working with what you can do. It's not like trying to climb Mount Everest, but taking small steps, walking, developing some exercise plans, and that has to do with your nutrition, your exercise, and your meal planning and that kind of a thing, what you can do, how you can improve. Each individual person is an individual person. It's never a one-size-fits-all. It's never a one-size-fits-all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really good.
Everybody's an individual.
This has been awesome. Will you come again sometime?
Sure, I'd love to. We had a great lunch, didn't we, Chris?
Yes. Well, I'll let you know in a minute. Yeah, you've kind of. Well, Maria, thank you so much. We've been speaking with Maria Fisk. She is a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator and longstanding Providence St. Joseph's Medical Center caregiver and healthcare professional. And I really thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And everybody sit tight, because when we come back, we're going to have our other awesome friend, Kathy Cole, author of the book Kick-Ass Kinda Girl, a memoir of life, love, and caregiving. So sit tight, and we'll be right back. Hey, this is Christopher Ewing with a Life After Stroke health tip. Now, you always hear people ask the question, how did we ever live without cell phones? Well, today, our cell phones can actually help us live. Whether your cell phone is an iPhone or an Android phone, if you have a previous medical condition, and especially if you're a stroke survivor, then you absolutely want to have a medical ID on your cell phone. Now, a medical ID is a special link that sits right on the home screen of your cell phone, where someone like an ambulance driver or a doctor or any first responder to any medical emergency that you may be having can find the important medical information that you want someone to know if you're not able to tell them yourself. Maybe because you've lost consciousness, or you're having another stroke, or maybe you're just unable to speak or remember the information for whatever reason. All someone needs to do if you're having an emergency is click on the medical ID link on your phone, and there they can see all the important information that you've listed there, like your name, any prior medical condition that you may have, any medications that you may be taking, as well as the phone number of the person who should be notified if you're having a medical emergency. Now, on most phones, the Medical ID app is already on your phone and ready to be set up. And if you don't see a Medical ID app currently on your phone, then all you have to do is go to Google Play or the iPhone App Store and download any Medical ID app that you choose. And best of all, most of the Medical ID apps you can choose from are free. So having a Medical ID link on your phone is super important to have. And what's even cooler is, in an emergency, the first responder can even access your Medical ID info, even if your cell phone is locked and requires a password to open it. If you need more information on where to find a Medical ID app and learn how to activate it on your phone, or if you have a really cool health tip that you'd like to share with others, just go to our website, www.thestrokechannel.tv. I'm Christopher Ewing, and this has been a Life After Stroke health tip. Hey everybody, welcome back to Life After Stroke. I'm Christopher Ewing, and with us right now is one of our favorite people in the whole wide world. If you guys listened a few episodes ago, we had on Kathy Cole, who's the author of Kick-Ass Kinda Girl, a memoir of life, love, and caregiving, and she is with us right now here because, first of all, we just love her to death. You can say hi. You're nervous.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
Man, I tell you, you did something when you came here the other day. You just captured everybody's hearts in the whole room. And, I've even seen you at events, and you have the same effect on people. They just are so drawn to you, and drawn to you not just because of your story, but really just because of your spirit. And it just comes through, Kathy. It just does. And, I'm not saying it because we're on the air, because I tell this to you every time I talk to you almost. There's just something about you, and something about just your heart and your spirit, and I can see not only why you wrote a book, but I can see just the impact that you had on Don. I mean, obviously, first of all, he fell in love with you and married you, but just everything that went into that whole story and relationship and everything else. As I've said to you before, I can't think of a better person to have gone through what he went through than to have someone like you to go through it with. And just the 6.5 years, what ultimately became his final years, was still filled with a lot of love and care and respect, and just everything that you would want from, your spouse when you're in a relationship and something crappy happens,
Well, thank you. This Those are really nice words. I really appreciate them, and thank you so much. And I'm honored to be here again today.
Well, for the past few weeks, ever since I met Kathy, I was like, you know what? We're not done with you. And so, which is why, I know we have a ton of caregivers who listen to our show. And it just kind of hit me when I first met you. I was like, I've been wanting to do something for all of our caregivers that listen. And I just thought, you know what? Kathy's it. Kathy's a really good go-to. So I am just wanting to announce here on the show that in future episodes of Life After Stroke, we will be incorporating special segments that will include Kathy. And we're tentatively calling them Care for Caregivers with Kathy Cole. And they're just kind of like special segments that we're going to have during the show where Kathy will come on and just be Kathy. And share Kathy, share whatever's on her heart, share the wisdom that she's amassed over the past several years. Certainly, after being a caregiver for not just her husband, but also her parents. You were a caregiver, kind of early on, as we talked about. You guys might want to go back and listen to the previous episode. I don't know what episode number it is, but
it was on Valentine's Day.
That's right. So that's correct. We taped it on Valentine's Day. So if you go back a few episodes, sometime in February, you'll see the special that we did. And it was just Kathy for the whole episode. She just told just this amazing story, which has basically been her life and the life that she had with her husband, Don, and all that went into that life post-stroke. He had a massive stroke and wound up paralyzed from the neck down. But just you as a caregiver, you're just such a great example of how to be a caregiver, what goes into being a caregiver. And I think that, to me, I don't think there's anybody who could speak to caregivers out there better than you could. I mean, I could sit here and host a show all day long, but, I'm not going to bring it like you can,
well,
in terms of talking to these caregivers and really giving them the insight and knowledge to all that it means to being a caregiver. I've never been a caregiver, but certainly, my mom has been a caregiver for me over the past 11 months. And, it's a big job. It's a big job. And I had no idea. Just all that goes into it.
Right. And, I understand that part of it. And I understand the loneliness and the frustrations, the sadness, all of that. So, I decided if there was anything I could do to help people that are now facing those sort of challenges. I've been there. Maybe it's, sort of my purpose. There was a reason.
Sure.
And so, I tried to do this.
Absolutely. Well, and aside from, the book and the fact that, you're going to become part of the episodes that we do here on Life After Stroke, the segment that you're going to do on caregiving, you have this amazing foundation, which I think is just really, really awesome. The Kathy Cole Foundation. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, what I do is I find different families that I call them caregivers in need. And these are people that, they can't afford to do a lot of things. They can't find respite because they can't afford it. So I find so many families a month through different hospitals and different people they're recommended to me. And I might help them with, I'm thinking of some good examples. A lot of times it's gift cards, to grocery stores or because they need food, they need clothing. I also like to do things that are fun. So a good example would be a woman who she really wanted to go to a museum and take a photography class. And so she couldn't afford to get a caregiver to come in, a professional caregiver to take care of her husband. So my foundation paid for a caregiver for the day and transportation for her to get to this particular museum. And, she spent the whole day. It gave her a break. When she came home, she just felt so much better. And she lived in Wisconsin. So it's different places. It's not just around here.
Sure.
And so different things like that. Those are the kind of fun things to do because I do hope that caregivers understand that they need to take care of themselves and they need a break. It's very, very hard for them to take a break. So I try and help a little bit with that. So
Sure.
not only the financial part, but, it's the mental part. It's that break they need, and to know other people care, other people understand.
Right. Well, it's an outstanding organization, you guys. Again, it's called the Kathy Cole Foundation. And, I'm just going to kind of go here with it. If you have a penny, leave a penny. If you need a penny, take a penny. So it's kind of like if you guys, if you need something, you need some assistance, some help in some kind of way. I mean, I've heard that, anything from, just needing a day out or just, get into some activities, and maybe the finances are short, you can't afford the classes or something, but you need that break. The foundation will do that. I've even heard you mention that, somebody needed their light bill paid or rent, for a month or something. You've even come to that rescue. So if you find yourself in that kind of situation, go to Kathy's website, kathycole.com. You'll see a link there for the foundation. Kathy spelled without an E and without a Y. It's Kathi, and then Cole is KOLL.com. And then also, these things can't happen by magic. So, that's where I kind of talk about if you have a penny and maybe you can leave a penny. The organization always needs donations. And so, if you find yourself in a situation where you're in an opportunity and a position to give to an outstanding organization that's going to help caregivers who are, caring for people that are stroke survivors, I'm sure the organization would love any kind of contribution that you can give. So again, go to kathycole.com, and you'll see all the information there that you need to have in order to make a donation and help Kathy and her awesome mission that she has embraced. I just think it's awesome. I think you're awesome. I think it's awesome.
Well, thank you. But it's not just the caregivers, not just stroke survivors. I have caregivers I help that have Alzheimer's, that have all sorts of things. So, it's basically for caregivers. But a lot of people with stroke problems, because that's how it started with me.
That's what I mean. Yes, exactly.
Yes. Okay.
Right. And I just applaud you for it.
Well, thank you.
Just so applaud you for it. And every week you're going to be talking about topics that caregivers basically deal with on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, just in life basis. In terms of anxiety and just not having enough time for themselves. I think it's one of the things that you spoke about the last time you were here, about how it's important that caregivers set aside some me time.
Right.
And just really don't forget to schedule yourself, I think is the way that you put it.
Right.
Don't forget to schedule yourself. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, they're kind of things that when I think back what I would have done differently. And when you're saying, I'm going to have a little segment, it's going to be short, but sort of tips that I can pass on, and things that I think are important and things that maybe I would have done differently. And when you ask about the schedule, for me, every day my husband was on the calendar. It said 10 o'clock he's going to have physical therapy. 12 o'clock he's going to, the doctor's coming. Whatever it was, the whole calendar for the day was filled with my husband. And there was nowhere on the calendar that said, Kathy from 1 to 2 is going to sit and watch a TV show. And what happens is if you don't do that, it doesn't become a habit for the loved one you're caring for. It's kind of a two-way street. It's not just the patient, it's the caregiver also. And so if I had it to do all over again, it wouldn't have had to be at the same time every day, and it didn't have to be for an hour, whatever. But it would be on the calendar. Today I'm going to do such and such. Even if I couldn't leave his room, it would be, Dawn, I just want you to know, from 3 to 4, I'm going to be sitting over there with my feet up reading a book. Or from 7 to 9, if someone's going to be here with him, I'm going to be out to dinner. But it needs to be on the calendar.
And it really is that important.
For me, it really was, because I found without it, sometimes the patient, I'll say, or my husband, it gets to be 100% about them, and someone that's ill doesn't always think about how difficult it is to be a caregiver. And they don't, and people used to say to me, Kathy, you need a break, you need to rest, or you're not going to be good for anyone. Well, I didn't know what that meant until I became sleep deprived and all that. And then I realized I wasn't good for him, I wasn't good for me, I was exhausted. And it's the same way now. I mean, I lost my husband, but now I've had, years by myself. And when I don't have sleep, the life doesn't look as good. When I have sleep, I can do anything.
I know that this is going to be one of the topics on your segment, but talk a little bit about the guilt that a caregiver might feel if they say, well, if I'm not there every minute of the day, or if I do take that time away for myself, then I'm not there for them, and, I'm not being attentive to their needs. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, they say, and I believe it, that guilt is probably one of the number one problems with a caregiver, or how they feel. And I mean, I constantly felt guilty. I felt guilty that he had the stroke and I didn't. Not that I,
Sure.
I didn't want to change spots with him, but I felt guilty about it. I felt guilty if let's say I went and played golf with some friends. The whole time I was playing golf, I would feel like, well, this is terrible. I mean, he can't play golf. I shouldn't be doing this. So it goes on no matter what. It goes on all the time, even to the point after I lost my husband. I'd say for the first year or so, I'd be doing things and think, oh my gosh, I've got to get home right away. I can't be doing this. Dawn can't do it. So it's a feeling.
Boy, that was even after he had already passed away.
Yeah. Yeah, it was always in my mind. Oh my God, he's home. I got to get home right now. I've been gone for an hour. So yes, you always feel guilty.
Before we went on the air, we had a very, I don't know what I would call it, a sad conversation, an unfortunate conversation, might even be a very common topic of conversation. And it was about relationships that suffer as a result of a stroke. And it was basically where marriages and or potential marriages, because one was a topic of a young woman who was engaged. She had a stroke, and the person she was engaged to immediately broke up with her because she had a stroke. It's sad that could even happen, but I guess it does happen. There are just some situations where the spouse or the mate are just so overwhelmed with the reality of, okay, now this is what our life is going to be now, and it's a lot different than I assumed. Or is it, hey, now I'm going to have to be the person that's going to have to carry the weight of this relationship because now because you can't walk or can't talk or whatever. It's amazing. I'm kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier. It's a sad commentary that would be the case, but I guess in some cases it could be the situation.
It's life.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of times people are there for their spouse or their friends or whatever in the most challenging situations, and other times they aren't. So it doesn't matter whether one has had a stroke or not. It's the emotional makeup or the strength or whatever it is of the person, whether they can do it or they can't. And so I would say, I mean, I did it, but that doesn't mean it was right or wrong. It just means, some people, they are not emotionally equipped to be able to handle it, because it is a big job. I mean, it's definitely sad when that happens, especially when you hear someone just got engaged and, it's supposed to be the love of each other's lives, and 24 hours later, the person is, I can't handle this. I'm out of here. I mean, that story to me sounded like he didn't even give it a chance.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think it's a blessing, but blessing
probably.
to her. But hey,
she learned early
exactly
what he was like. But I mean, there was no chance. There was no.
Sure.
I mean, that was tough. But who knows when that saying, you don't know unless you walk in that person's shoes. You just don't know.
Well, and another story that came up was about a woman whose husband had a stroke, and she was the caregiver of that gentleman, and his family had other ideas as to where they wanted him to live, and they wanted him to move hundreds of miles away from where he was currently living with his wife and their family, and they wanted him to move back closer to them, which was hundreds of miles away. And the wife was like, but I don't want to move there. I've got a career here. I've got friends and family here. And, we were fine here all along and, before the stroke. And even now in the midst of the stroke, I'm caring for him. Everything's fine. why do you need to pressure him and pressure us into making this kind of change when, we're a family now, we're in this together and we're okay. And what ended up happening is that the family pressure placed upon the man actually kind of won out. And so the man was transported to hundreds of miles away to where his family is. And the wife is like, okay, well, here I sit. And now they're getting a divorce, for gosh sakes,
Right. They hadn't been married that long. Well, they had been married a couple of years when he had his stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular person heard about me, and from two different directions, from two people that didn't know one another. One lived out of state, so it was sort of a coincidence. And I met with her, and it was right in the beginning of her husband being ill. And I remember thinking she had a lot of energy, and I used my expression, just remember, it's not a sprint, it's going to be a marathon, because that was the advice that was given to me, and I didn't know what it meant. So I tried to explain it to her, and please don't wear yourself out. Take a big breath, just relax. So I heard the whole story, and it was heartbreaking. It always is. And just recently, I inquired about her through someone I knew, and that's when I heard this whole, sad story that, the family wanted him to move, and she wanted to stay, and because she's from, where they were living, and I'm not really sure on all the details, but he said, she said. But then again, it comes around to you can't judge other people because who knows the complete story? And this man was in his late 50s, early 60s, and maybe he really missed his grandchildren, or maybe I don't know. All I just know is she said, he said, the whole family's been torn apart, and there's never an easy solution.
Sure. And I guess, even going there on that topic, it isn't necessarily to judge their particular situation or who's right and who's wrong in the situation. Just the fact that this type of thing could come up.
Yeah, it happens.
It's not enough that the person had a stroke. It's not enough that, okay, well, this is our new life now. It's just kind of yet another thing that has to be dealt with in the midst of a stroke, and how, you kind of have to, mentally prepare yourself and emotionally prepare yourself for things like this. It's
on both sides.
On both, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's, unfortunately, it doesn't just stop with the fact that, okay, I've had a stroke and now I've got to go to, physical therapy, for gosh sakes,
Right.
I mean, it might have to be, marriage therapy. I mean, it might have to be just anything. And just really just what the strain of all of that can be. You know what I mean?
Well, another part of the strain is if someone, let's say they have cancer, which my parents both died of cancer, but in my experience, we learned they had cancer, and you had a period of time that you're thinking about it, they're going through treatments, they didn't seem that sick when it was diagnosed, but it's sort of a long process for you to become used to. With a stroke, it's bingo.
Yes.
And it's like someone's been hit by a car.
That's right.
And so it is such a shock. And then with a stroke, at least in my husband's situation, I never knew if he was going to be alive in the morning or if he'd be alive at the end of the day.
Sure.
And so it's a different kind of pressure because it's the unknown. So you not only are you living with someone that is ill, but you're also living in the unknown, which is double the pressure on a caregiver.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, a doctor once told me, he said, Kathy, you are having the most difficult situation that I know of. And I said, well, why? He says, because there's not a beginning and an end. With many illnesses, there is the beginning, but unfortunately, the end will be 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. He said the situations where it's, it's not clear cut, it's very hard on the caregiver because they don't know from day to day what's happening.
Right. Yeah, so it's very heavy. All of this is very heavy, and as the producer of this show and things like that, there's I don't want to say a sense of responsibility, but I mean there is a sense of responsibility on my part to see that all of my listeners are getting the kind of information they need. I'm going to cut this part out.
One thing I'd like to add is for a caregiver, one of the things the doctors told me is it's very important to get regular checkups because statistically caregivers become ill more than other people.
Really?
Because of the stress. Because of them not taking care of themselves, because of them they might have a symptom for something and they just ignore it because they're so busy taking care of their loved one, and that ends up not being good for anyone.
I just am so thrilled to have you be a part of this show and to be able to share some of the wisdom and the insight that you've amassed over the years, and to just talk to all of the listeners, not just the stroke survivors, but obviously the caregivers who listen to the show, who can just get so much information from you and just so much insight and hope and wisdom and things like that. Because as you said, we go through these things for a reason, and many times it's to share with others, to help them and educate them and guide them through.
That's why now with what I'm doing, I feel like I wish I had had the knowledge that I have now when it happened to me. And so, I can't fix everyone or anyone, but I can give a few tips here and there and
that's
be a
why,
cheerleader,
Kathy, you've heard me say it many times, and that's why I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
And that it's you that's doing it, because you're not someone who's just okay, well, I'm going to start this foundation, I'm just going to do this thing, and I mean, this is you. I mean, you are so much the right person to head up an organization like this, not just because you're smart and brilliant and all that other stuff, but just because it is your heart. The saying, you walk the walk or whatever. I mean, that's just you, and it comes through in who you are and how you are, and anyone that is fortunate enough to be connected with you through your organization, I know will be just so well cared for to the best of your ability to do whatever and meet whatever need they might have, because that's just you.
Well, thank you. And also with the foundation, if anyone looks it up online, it's not just helping caregivers that are the caregivers in need. I have blogs, and I have I try and send out a monthly blog, and I have many people that come to me and say, you know what, I've reread that. I didn't even have a stroke, but your blog on, let's say, depression really kind of helped me. So it's, like I say, a lot of it is just sort of just kind of coming up with different ideas that might help people. Right,
and see, and that's what I mean. To go to the extent of a blog and things like that. I mean, some organizations just say, hey, look, send us money, and, we'll give some away, and okay, thanks. But I mean, you feel this, I mean, this is you. This is, really who you are as a person, and I just think it's awesome.
Thank you.
You got to blush and get all shy on me over there.
Oh my, okay.
Hey, I'm just telling you like it is, girl. I'm just telling you like it is. So everybody look forward to Kathy's segments here on the show in coming weeks and stuff like that, and just, reach out to her, in whatever way you need to, want to, feel led to. Again, if you need support through her foundation, reach out to her in that way. If you can help support her foundation, do that. But more than anything, just take heed to the wisdom that she has to impart to, again, not just caregivers, and certainly not just to stroke survivors or anything like that, but just the overall experience that she's been through, that she's kind enough and caring enough to share and to help others. So it's really awesome. So anyway, that is the show for today, everybody. And as always, I appreciate you guys listening. I know that we have just tons of listeners all around the world, and just know we love you guys. We're here for you. And as I always say, until next time, remember that there is still a beautiful life after stroke. This has been a recorded program of an actual stroke support group. The comments expressed are the opinions of the participants and not necessarily the opinions of the producers, sponsors, or the broadcasters of this show. This program is not to be used as a way to diagnose or treat any medical condition that you may have. Please consult your doctor or healthcare professional before making any changes to your current medical routine.